fix it. Inshallah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. This is our, I forgot the number. Al-Muhim, we still ما زلنا في كتاب book الصلاة. كتاب الصلاة from fiqh of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah ta'ala, from the book called Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni. Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni. We haven't had class in a couple weeks. However, the last thing we covered was Sifatul Salat, the description of the prayer. And we had the brother act out the different acts of the Salat. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we will cover, it's going to be brief, but we'll cover, inshallah, ma yukrahu fi salat, the things that are hated in the salat. Not necessarily muharram, but things that are hated. Tayyib. If we say that something is hated in the salat, what does that mean? What's hated? What does that mean? For example, a person does something in the salat, the ulama say this is something that is hated. This act is hated. What does that mean?
Dislike. Dislike.
Dislike. Tayyib. Hated to who? Hated to me? Hated to you? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tayyib. So then, the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they have, especially in the book of Salat, it's very extensive. In fact, it may vary or differ with other schools of thought. And this is why it's important for the one teaching to distinguish between different schools and also give people information about other schools of thought, because you may see something that may be something that you consider to invalidate the Salat. Perhaps other scholars of Islam and other schools may differ, right? And it may be a khilaf mu'tabar, a difference of opinion that's considered, not a difference of opinion that no one looks at or pays attention to. So that's important. But so the first thing, and this is from Imam Hajjawi, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his explanation or in his book called Zaad Al-Mustaq'ni. So he says, rahimahullah, وَيُكْرَهُ فِي الصَّلَاةِ إِلْتِفَاتُهُ. So the first thing that is hated in the salat, mind you, hated, it doesn't nullify the salat. Iltifatu. What does iltifat mean? Iltifat means to turn one way or another. So for example, if a person is praying and he turns like this in the salat to the left or to the right, this doesn't nullify the salat, but it's something that is hated. It may take away from some of the reward for the salat. And the ulama, when they talk about turning in the salat, they specify bil-wajh wa bil-sadr, yani with the face and the chest. With the face and the chest. Dun al-qadamain, without mentioning the feet. So then if someone is praying in this and they just turn around and so on and so forth, this may actually nullify the salat. However, if a person were to turn this way or that way while their feet are firm facing the qibla to the end of it, then this is something that is just hated, not muharram. Hated, not muharram. Tayyib. So the next thing he mentions, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَرَفْعُ بَصَرِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, and raising the eyes to the sky when they are praying. This is something that is hated. It's not haram, but it is hated. Meaning that if a person does it, or rather if a person doesn't do it, you'll be rewarded for it if you don't do it. Well then, so it says وَرَفْعُ بَصْرِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. It's hated for a person to raise their eyes to the sky. إِلَّا إِذَا تَجَشَّعَ. تَجَشَّعَ, it means to belch. And so the ulama mention, they say, well, if a person belches in the salah, فَيَرْجُ وَجْهُ لِأَلَّا يُؤَذِّي مَنْ حَوْلَهُ. In this case, if a person belches in the salah, it's better for him to raise his head or, move so that he doesn't or she doesn't affect those around them when they are praying. Or, see, anything that can be done to prevent harm from coming to someone else. It was reported in hadith of Anas. He says that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ma balu aqwamin yarfa'una absarahum ila as-sama'i fi salatihim." He said, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, what about those people? Ma balu. How could those people raise their eyes to the sky while they're praying? And this shows and there's another narration about poking the eyes or what have you if a person raises their eyes. Another thing, وَتَخْمِيدُ عَيْنَيْهِ. If a person closes their eyes while they're praying, this is also hated. To close one's eyes if they are praying. As is something that for many people before Islam, you may close your eyes and put your hands together and pray. Rather, if a person is praying in the Salat, then they should look at the location that they will be prostrating to. Now, mind you, this is not haram, meaning if a person closes his eyes, this is an action that is deserving of Allah's punishment. No one is saying that. Rather, we're covering the things that are hated according to the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Intabihu. Pay careful attention. Perhaps you might read in another school of thought, they say, no, there's no problem closing your eyes. Why are you telling me it's haram? No one said it's haram. According to the school of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, based on the evidence that they present, they consider it to be hated. In other words, an act that is disliked. An act that is disliked. Like, there's no reward, there's no punishment associated with it. There's no punishment associated with something that is hated. Well, there. Like. So the next one is iqa'uhu. Iqa'uhu. This means if a person, let's say for example, a brother or sister is sitting in doing the tashahhud, for example. And you know how when a person sit with their heels up like this and they sit on the back of their heels, this is something that is hated. This is something that is hated. Some brothers, if they're praying outside with their shoes on, they might not want to sit proper because they don't want to mess their shoes up. You want to bend and crease your shoes or take your shoes off. Well, so if a person sits on the back of their heels when they're on the ground, if they sit on the back of their heels, if their behind sits on the back of their heels, when their heels are up and their feet are up in the air like this is called iqa'uhu. This is something that is also hated. Tayyib. Any questions about that?
Yes.
Now, tafadhal.
So if you like this, right? Like that?
That's the position. Come here so we can put you on the camera so everybody can see it. Oh, what does that mean? Y'all let us lie. Come here, man. Yeah, just like that. Come here. Ya Sheikh, yalla, fadda. Ta'al. La bas. So look, put your feet down. Just turn it on the other way.
Like this.
This is iqa'uhu. I gotta look at his feet, not his face. Put your feet back. Yeah, just like that. Alright? Jazakumullahu khairan.
This cool?
It's hated.
No, this part.
That part, Allahu A'lam. But the other part is talking when you sit directly on your heels.
Okay.
Got it? Yeah. Jazakallahu khairan. May Allah reward you, man.
So you want to keep it like we can ask questions as we go?
Yeah, you can ask questions as we go.
Yeah. The first section that you were talking about.
The first section.
Yeah.
Turning?
Yeah, about turning.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes if you sort of filtered kind of mindset or something, thinking kind of like crosses your mind, and you turn around, you kind of like spit on the left side way too. Like,
You spit? You spit over your shoulder?
Yeah. So,
Based on the hadith, if you think about some waswas comes to you, you spit?
Yeah.
So some of the ulama, when they explain this, I've personally heard one of the mashayikh explain that. It doesn't mean turn over your shoulder and spit, because you're going to be spitting on the person next to you. Right. So what you do is you turn slightly to the left and you like that. Slightly to the left, like that. Well, It's not like you're going over your shoulder and you're spitting, because what about the brother standing next to you in the salat? You going to spit inside his face?
It's not gonna spit, though.
Huh?
It's not gonna spit. Like,
I mean, maybe he doesn't want your breath blowing on his face.
right, that's right.
Right? That could be offensive.
Right.
Right.
Okay. You're talking about people sitting down on their heels. Okay. Suppose you have your shoes on and play, and you can sit down the same way on your heels.
It's the same thing. You're still sitting on your heels. If you have your shoes on or off, you're still sitting on your heels. Right? Right. So what's understood here is sitting on the hill, and they say similar to dogs. That's how dogs sit. And so it actually mentions that. It says in this hadith, it says, إِذَا رَفَعْتَ رَأْسَكَ مِنَ السُّجُودِ فَلَا تَقْعِي كَمَا يُقْعِي الْكَلْبُ. It says, if you raise your head from sujood, do not sit the way that a dog sits. Do not sit the way that a dog sits. طيب. So the next one is وَافْتِرَاشُ ذِرَاعِيهِ سَاجِدًا. Another thing, if a person is making sujood, you are not to make sujood and leave your whole forearms on the ground like this. Yeah, you know how when you just like this, and you go down sujood, on your all forearms like this. These are flat on the ground, like that. Yes. You don't do that. You don't leave your forearms flat on the ground while you're making sujood. Rather, they should be up like this, not flat. I guess we can put it down like this. If it's flat like this on the ground. Is that clear? Right. So the next one is وَعَبَثَهُ. Now these are things that are hated. It's not muharram. And tabihu, pay attention. We're not saying that if you do that, no one's going to tell you it's haram, but it's something that is hated. Something that you shouldn't do. It's disliked. Another thing is وَعَبَثَهُ. So a person might say this. Here's another issue. You might say, well, didn't you just read the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, don't sit the way the dogs sit? Isn't that a prohibition? Doesn't that mean it's something that's impermissible to do? Why are you saying it's hated? Isn't that a good question? I know I would have thought about that. What do you think? It's a good question, right? Right. So the way commands and prohibitions work in Islam is we have things that are called asl. The asl, anytime Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, commands us to do something, the origin is that that thing is obligatory. So for example, if we find a hadith or ayah telling us to do something, the origin is that it is wajib to do. That it is wajib. Well, anytime we have a command from Allah and His Messenger, the rule of thumb is that that thing becomes wajib. Anytime we have a prohibition, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam say don't do this or don't do that, the origin is that that thing is haram. Okay? Is that clear? Right. So then, if something is haram, if we look at this hadith, if the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says don't do this, is similar to the sitting of a dog. If he says that, the question would be, here's a prohibition. Why now is it considered to be hated and not haram? Does anyone know the answer to this question? First of all, is the question clear? Is the question clear? Yes. Yes. No problem, Sheikh. The question is, if the Prophet, right here, we're going over the list of things in the Salat that are hated, that are not recommended to do. So, if we have a hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam telling us that we should not do something, the origin of anything that Allah and His Messenger tells us to do or tell us to do, then that thing is haram or wajib. So for example, if Allah says do this, or the Prophet ﷺ says do this, the rule of thumb is that it's wajib to do. Likewise, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or the Prophet ﷺ say don't do this, then the origin is that thing is impermissible, haram. Okay? So a questioner might ask, why is it hated to sit like dogs when we have a hadith that says don't do it? That's the question. Is the question clear? Okay. So does anyone know why it's not haram? Huh?
Is it because people would, like for example, you have people with injuries and stuff like that?
That if something is haram, if a person out of necessity, things may become permissible out of necessity. But even if it becomes permissible out of necessity, it still doesn't take away from it being impermissible. For example, we just went on a different topic, but for example, let's say a person's on the verge of death. So on the verge of death, of starvation or thirst, for example, right? The only thing in front of him is alcohol. It's the only thing that will sustain his life. It's permissible for him to drink that alcohol even though that alcohol remains haram. Well, it's permissible for him to drink that alcohol to sustain his life even though the ruling for that alcohol never changed. It never changed. It's always haram. But in certain cases it becomes permissible out of necessity. Huh? So it's impermissible in Islam for a person to kill themselves. And if a person doesn't eat, you can't die. If it's food there, whether it's haram or halal, you still can eat it to sustain your life. Well, so back to the issue at hand. Why is it now the case? Why is it the case that we have a hadith that says you can't sit this way, but then we have a hadith that says we can't sit this way, but then Imam Ahmad's fiqh say that it's just hated and not haram? The reason for this is because the origin is that it's haram. But what takes it from the category of being haram to hate it is that there may have been some of the companions that did it. There may have been other narrations of people doing it. There may have been, it may not be associated with a punishment. There are other things that will take it from the level of being impermissible to hate it. Well, just like when we have commands from Allah and His Messenger, the origin is that it is wajib to do it, right? But then we may find, I'll give you an example. Urinating while a person is standing. Huh? In Islam, a man should not urinate while he's standing. This is a hadith. And then we find that it's hated, but it's not haram. Why? Because we have other narrations stating the opposite. Well, and one thing about Islam, we can't just take one narration and make a ruling. Rather, we have to compile all of the evidence to support that position or opposes it. That supports it or opposes it. And this is the job of Ahlul Ilm. This is the job of the scholars of Al-Islam. This is what they do. They combine the evidence, they look at it, and they sift through it, and then they come up with rulings based on the evidence that is presented. So the next thing that's hated is abatha. Abathahu in the salat, if a person is playing around in the salat. As some of the ulama mentioned, la fa'ida fi amalihi. And a person does actions, there's no benefit to it. Let's say, for example, a brother is standing in the salat, and he's just moving his arms, scratching his face, pulling his hair, fixing with his kufi, messing with his stove, checking the time, all of this in the salat. And this is hated. Some of the ulama, they say that even though that is hated, it says if a person were to do it excessively, it possibly could nullify a person's salat. But just playing around the salat, moving around movements that is not necessary, then this is something that is hated. Another thing that is hated is takhassuruhu. Takhassuruhu is for a person to put his hands on his waist, on his hips like this. Put his hands on his waist. We're not talking about letting your hands slide down to the side. We're talking about having your hands on your hips like this. There's also something that is hated. وَتَرَوُحُهُ If a person was to fan themselves in the salat, this is also something that is hated. To fan themselves. A person's praying is hot and he has a fan. He's fanning his face. Or she's fanning her face in the salat. Is also hated, not haram. فَرْقَعَةُ أَصَابِعُهُ أو أَصَابِعِهِ. Also, another thing that is hated, how many times have you seen people in the salat, they're praying like this, and you hear this? They just start cracking their knuckles in the salat. Right? This is something that is also hated in the salat. Hated in the salat. Likewise, tashbikuha. Even, a person could be praying, they just stop, cross their hands like this. This is also hated. in the salat. Right. And this is all in accordance, and there's evidence for every single issue, but we don't have time to go through all the adillah for each thing. And another thing is that when you're studying fiqh, in the beginning stages of fiqh, the ulama, they give positions. Like, for example, there's a book called Umdat al-Fiqh. Perhaps you may not find all the evidence for every position, but then as you graduate from that book and move on to a slightly more advanced book, then you're going to have the evidence for that position. And then you move on to a slightly more advanced book, then they're going to give you 2 or 3 pieces of evidence for that position. And then you move for a slightly more advanced book, you're going to have all the evidence for that position, and then you're going to have evidence for positions that oppose that position. And then it goes on and on and on, and then you say, you know what, let me just fall back. But, and it says, وَيَكُونَ حَاقِنًا وَيَكُونَ حَاقِنًا. Haqinan is hated for a person to pray when they have to use the bathroom. If a person has to use the bathroom, then they should use the bathroom first prior to praying, unless the salat is on its way out. Unless the salat is on its way out. But, is that clear? The next thing is also hated for a person and yakuna haqinan أو بحضرة الطعام يشتهيه. If a person is hungry, and they're praying, then you can not, especially if you're hungry, then you can leave off the salat. Not leave off the salat meaning you don't have to pray the salat at all, meaning you can delay it. And when I say delay the salat, I mean delay it within its time. Because I understand you have to be very specific when you talk. The brother said delay the salat. No, that's not what I meant. I mean delay the salat within the time frame, not delay it outside of its proper time. Well, is that clear? Yeah. Play. All right. So, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, "La salata bi hadrat al-ta'am, wa la huwa yudafiyahu al-akhbathan." Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, this hadith was reported by Imam Muslim. He said, "There's no salat if food is present, and likewise if he has to use the bathroom." I remember one time we were in Mecca and they were calling the iqamah for the salat, and we were eating. Like the food, everybody was hungry. I forget which salat it was, but everybody was hungry, and the food had just came, and it was time to go to the salat. And I was like, man, what are we going to do? And we just ate, and I just felt like it was wrong. Like, man, they're praying, and I'm eating food, right? But you eat what you need to eat, and you go to the salat. You eat what you need to eat, and you get up and you go to the salat. But another thing that is hated is tikrar al-Fatiha. Tikrar al-Fatiha. Yani, if they're praying in the salat and they recite the al-Fatiha multiple times. So for example, if that's the only surah you know, you start off, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa ad-Dallin, to the end of it. And you say the same surah again in the salat. This is something that is hated. Not haram, but hated.
Yeah.
Now.
For example, if you are the imam, okay, people behind you recite the surah Fatiha. Okay,
say again, I'm sorry?
If an imam recite the surah Fatiha louder, like a Salat Maghrib, okay, everybody's, he gets to get a few minute break before another surah. People who behind the imam, they have to recite the surah Fatiha or they don't have to?
By Mumtaz. We mentioned that before. So the Sheikh, he asked, when the Imam recites Al-Fatiha, do we have time to recite Al-Fatiha even though it's a small break at the end? What should the people praying behind the Imam, what should they do? Many of the scholars of Al-Islam, they said that a person should recite Al-Fatiha fi saqatat al-Imam. Saqatat al-Imam is when the Imam is silent. So for example, when you start the Al-Fatiha, when the Imam says Allahu Akbar, you say Allahu Akbar behind him, you can start reciting Al-Fatiha. And then when he starts reciting Al-Fatiha, you can pause. And once he finishes, there's another break towards the end, then you can finish it then. We spoke about this in our last class. As many of the scholars say, recite al-Fatiha fi saqatat al-imam. Saqatat al-imam, it means when the imam is silent, when he is not reciting Quran. So now we're going to mention some things that are not hated in the salah. Some things that are not hated in the salah. لا جمع صور في فرض كنفل. So say for example, if a person wanted to combine multiple surahs in the salah, this is not hated. For example, we have in Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it says, قرأ في ركعة من قيامه بالبقرة وآل إمران والنساء. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, and listen to how they used to pray. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam obviously recited Al-Fatiha because this is a pillar in the salah. And after Al-Fatiha, he recited Surah Al-Baqarah. And then Surah Ali Imran, and then Surah An-Nisa.
So he didn't have to go in that order.
Did he have to go in that order? No, there's no. Did the Prophet ﷺ go in that order, or does a person have to go in that order? What are you asking?
Did the Prophet go in that order?
What's apparent is that he did, Allahu A'lam, but it would appear as such. It would appear as such, and Allah knows best. وَلَهُ رَدُّ الْمَارٍ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ وَلَهُ رَدُّ الْمَارٍ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ. The next issue is a person can what? If a person is praying and they have a sutra, رَدُّ مَارٍ, yani you can move that person out of your way if you are praying. So for example, if a person walks in front of you, you can take your hand and move them out the way. رَدُّ مَارٍ. If he passes in front of you or whatever, you can take your hand and you can move those people in front of you, or move them from in front of you. The next thing is, we mentioned al-fathu ala imamihi. Al-fathu ala imam. So the next issue, we're going to stop with this issue right here, and then we'll finish the rest next week, inshallah ta'ala. Al-fathu, this is going to take some explanation. Al-fathu ala al-imam. What does fathu ala al-imam mean? Let's say, for example, the imam is leading the salah. Okay? We have two types of mistakes. If the imam is leading the salah and he makes a mistake, there are two cases, right? We have the men and then we have the women. If the man is reciting, or if the imam is reciting the salah, right? وَغَلَطَ, and he makes a mistake. Let's say he makes a mistake in Al-Fatiha. Is it wajib for a person to fath ala imam, in other words, to correct the imam in the salah? Yes or no?
Yes.
It's wajib
It's wajib.
to correct them. How do you correct them?
You say it louder, let him repeat.
How do you correct the imam if he makes a mistake? Not in Al-Fatiha. Let's say, for example, he's reciting Qul Hu Allahu Ahad, for example, Surah Al-Ikhlas, and he makes a mistake. How do you correct that mistake? You say Subhanallah?
Yes.
Right. So what if he doesn't know? What if he's stuck? What do you do?
Then you repeat it. The higher he escaped.
Huh?
The one he escaped, you repeat.
You repeat it.
Yeah.
Right. Is this wajib or is this sunnah? To correct the imam in Surah Al-Ikhlas. Is it wajib or is it sunnah? Do you have to correct them?
Yeah, it's sunnah.
It's sunnah.
Yeah.
You sure? Before you said it was wajib. Is it wajib or sunnah?
No, wajib is wajib.
So what does wajib mean?
Wajib means almost like obligatory.
Almost like obligatory, but not quite. Or is it obligatory?
It's obligatory.
All right, what does obligatory mean? If I tell you something is obligatory, in my mind, well, what if I don't do it? Then what?
Then you have to do it. Otherwise,
What if I don't do it?
then you don't have reward for it.
Then I'll have what?
You don't have no reward for that.
So I don't have reward. That's it?
You have to make up for that.
Let pay attention. If something is obligatory and I say I don't want to do it, and I don't do it, what does that mean? Is there a repercussion?
Yes.
What's the repercussion?
If the law pleases, you can be punished.
You can be punished. So to pay attention. To leave off something that is wajib or obligatory, This means that you are making it halal for Allah to punish you. You are opening up yourself and say, okay, I'm ready to receive Allah's punishment. That's what that means. If something is wajib and you leave it off intentionally, you know it. That's why I just don't feel like doing it. Then what you're saying is you're willing to accept Allah's punishment when it comes to you. That's what that means. You say, you know what, I'm cool. I'm ready to take. Wa yadhu billah. Nas'Allah salam wa afiyah. So the question is, if an imam makes a mistake in Surah Al-Ikhlas, for example, or Surah Al-Nas, and you want to correct, it's called Fathu al-Imam. It's called correcting the imam. This correction of the imam here, all right, is it wajib or is it sunnah? Hada su'al. That's the question. It's sunnah. Right. So the ulama of Islam, they explain this in two categories. There's two parts. If a person, the imam, is making a mistake in Al-Fatiha, it is wajib. It is wajib to correct him. What does wajib here mean? Wajib here means, why Al-Fatiha and not the surah after? Now.
Because Al-Fatiha is a pillar of the Salat. If you correct him, your Salat will be invalid.
Ahsant. It's because Al-Fatiha is a pillar of the Salat. And Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentioned, La salata idha lam yaqra bi fatihat al-kitab. Okay, maqal sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said there's no salat liman lam yaqra, for the one who doesn't recite fatihat al-kitab, the opening book of the Quran, meaning Al-Fatiha. So then, if a person makes a mistake in Al-Fatiha, then it is wajib, incumbent for that person to be corrected in the Al-Fatiha. And this is assuming that the one praying behind him knows that it's a mistake. If the imam leads the salat and he's incorrect and he doesn't know that it's wrong, and the people behind him praying behind him doesn't know that it's wrong, then that's a different ruling. However, if the people praying behind the imam knows that the imam made a mistake in Al-Fatiha and he tried to correct them, and the imam doesn't accept it, he continues with his error in Al-Fatiha, then that one person or two people that know that it's incorrect, they must pray their salat again. They must pray their salat again. And if this has happened in some masajid here in Philly, if this happens, to keep the fitna down, it's better for that person. If you're going to pray again, pray off to the side so no one really knows that's what you're doing. Because the purpose is not to create fitna or trial, but the purpose is for you to get your obligation out the way. The purpose for you to get your obligation out the way. The next one. إذا كان غير الفاتحة إذا كان غير الفاتحة, if it is not al-Fatiha, then it is sunnah to correct the one, the imam, when he makes a mistake. It is sunnah, it is not wajib. It is sunnah, it is not wajib. Right. We're going to stop right there. Any other questions, inshallah? Fadl.
Let's say an imam is reciting a certain way and it's correct, but the person behind him corrects him, tries to correct him not knowing it's correct. For example, if you say, Salat, Al-Mustaq'ni, the person behind you may not know that it's correct, but he may, what do you as an imam do?
Right. The brother said, if a person is reciting the Quran, perhaps in a different way, a different qira'ah. So some of the ulama, so the question is, what if the imam is reciting the Quran in a different qira'ah, in a different recitation? A recitation that people may not be familiar with. Some of the ulama, they say it's not good for a person to do that. It's not good for the imam to recite in a different recitation that the people in that area are not familiar with, because you're going to have problems like that. They're going to try to correct the imam in a salat, and they don't know that the imam is correct, but the imam is reciting in a different recitation. If the imam prepared his community for that, if they're aware that from time to time he may recite in a different recitation, la ba'as. Sunnah, la ba'as. But If it's going to cause a greater fitna, meaning that people are going to, oh, the imam is reciting, no one, it causes problems. So this is why, and Allah knows best, perhaps if the imam wanted to do that before the salat, perhaps he could let the people know he's going to be reciting in Warsh, for example, or what have you, and let the people know, like, this is what we're going to be doing, community, that this is what people do, then alhamdulillah. If it is not known, then you might want to stay away just to prevent the fitna. Because there's a possibility of some fitna that could come from that, and Allah knows best.
For that, it's nothing like different school of thought. Different school of thought.
Different schools of thought for what?
The first example you said, to turn your back or to make that turn in Salat.
Are you asking me, are there different schools of thought?
I just want to name my premise before I ask my question. You said that when you turn a certain way, different school, some school of thought said that that was, what was the term used? That was hidden.
It was what?
You said that was hidden. It was despised.
Oh, yes.
Right. So, and what's the position of the other schools?
Of all the other schools of thought? Allah, I don't have that. I don't have it in front of me, but there are a lot of schools of, what I'm saying is, according to the school of Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, we're very specific here, Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, according to his school of thought, if a person turns their chest or their head in the salat, as long as they don't turn their feet in a different direction, then this is hated. This is makruh, something that is disliked. Now, what are all the other schools of thoughts on this issue? Allah knows best. What I'm Imam Men?
What's his name again?
Imam Ahmed?
Ahmed. So, is it his school of thought is of the popular opinion that you are expecting us to go with it?
I'm not expecting you can do what you want. I'm just telling you, I'm just teaching you this here. But if you find another position that you have supported by evidence and whatever, go for it.
No, I don't want to do that. That's why I'm sitting here.
So then, okay, so if you want to take this, position, then don't turn around moving your salat. It's hated.
I'm going to take this position, but my thing is, I'm not arguing. I'm just trying to understand.
No. What's the most popular? Is that what you're asking me? No, Sheikh. I'm saying, are you asking me what's the most popular position?
Right.
Popular to who?
The most acceptable position.
To who? There's no. You mean what's the majority position? Is that your question?
If there's something that people don't understand, then of course, maybe there's this agreement. You kind of like study the whole opinions around that. And sometimes the popular opinion will win, or the most important opinion will win. For people to do.
So what you're asking me is what's the strongest position on this? Okay, so let me explain something to you. Anytime we say the strongest position, it always goes back to the one who's talking. I'm not a scholar and I can say here, this is the strongest position according to me. Right? Anytime you read something, for example, you might find Shaykh Al-Thamaraat rahimahullah ta'ala, in some of his works, he may say, Al-Rajih indi kada, meaning the strongest position with me is this. That's Shaykh Al-Thamaraat's strongest position. You might read something from Sheikh bin Baz. Sheikh bin Baz might say, Al-Rajih indi kada. The strongest position with me is this. All I'm saying is, according to the school of Imam Ahmed, this is the position of the school of Imam Ahmed. That's it. I can't tell you what's this because I'm not at the level to give my personal position, my personal opinion. What I do for myself is what I do for myself, what I'm comfortable with. But when it comes to giving you information, I'm just sticking to this is what it says, this is what you do. Huh? What am I comfortable with? I'm comfortable with myself. I'm comfortable with telling you what the scholars of the past said, and you take that. Right? So in terms of this being the strongest position of all of Islam, Allahu A'lam, I haven't done that much research on the issue to say, okay, according to all these different schools, I haven't done that. That takes time, a lot of time. Right? But according to Imam Ahmed's school of thought, this is the strongest position for that. And Allah knows best. You like working me, mashallah. Alhamdulillah. No, it's cool. No, it's all right. Any other questions, Ikhwan? Huh? طيب. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.